I'm Alan.
And I'm Jake.
And welcome to Crimicide, the show where we just find whatever pleases us on the internet that's really spooky or mysterious and share it with you guys.
Or completely unsolved, because today is a true crime unsolved mystery, one that you've probably heard of before. It is the D.B. Cooper case.
D.B. Cooper. Oh, D.B. D.B.'s. That's a really great one. I've heard it many, many times. I love his little 007 act. It's terrific.
Yeah, he dressed up for the occasion. We'll delve more into it. It remains today the only unsolved skyjacking in U.S. history. Skyjacking is just a really cool word, too.
It is a fun word. Can you imagine being a sky pirate?
Actually, technically, it is called sky piracy.
That's awesome.
Yep. So, we're just gonna...
Give me your Bucci or walk the plank! That'd suck, man.
Well, it was 1971, not 1671 when this happened, so I don't think he said it like that.
1971?
It was 1971.
Oh, gosh. That's a lot quick. That's a lot sooner than I thought. Anyway, you could do your own thing. Take it away.
On Wednesday, November 24th, 1971, a middle-aged man carrying a black attaché case approached the flight counter of Northwest Orient Airlines at Portland International Airport. He gave the alias Dan Cooper and used cash to purchase a one-way ticket on Flight 305, a 30-minute trip north to Seattle, Washington. The flight on a Boeing 727-100, and he took seat 18C in the rear passenger cabin. Cooper was a quiet man who appeared to be in his mid-40s, wearing a business suit with a black tie and white shirt. Flight 305, approximately one-third full, departed Portland on schedule at 2:50 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper handed a note to Florence Schaffner, the flight attendant situated nearest to him. Schaffner, assuming the note contained a lonely businessman's phone number, dropped it unopened into her purse.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
How freaking smooth is that?
She did not open it at first. He just handed her this note, and in her brain, she was like, oh, just a lonely businessman giving me his phone number, and she dropped it in her purse without reading it.
He's quite a smooth criminal in more ways than one.
Well, Cooper, shortly after, leaned forward and whispered, quote, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb," end quote. End quote. Very direct. Very to the point.
Oh, ma'am, I'm not trying to get in your pants. I have a bomb.
Yeah, totally different thing.
The exact wording of the note is unknown because Cooper later reclaimed it.
Dude, are you serious?
Yes.
He got that note back?
Yeah, he took it back from her.
Dude's already...
I'm not sure why.
His own memorabilia.
The note's wording was probably very similar to what he told her, so it's not a huge big deal.
After Schaffner read the note, Cooper told her to sit beside him. Schaffner did that, then quietly asked to see the bomb. Cooper opened his briefcase long enough for her to glimpse 8 red cylinders, 4 on top of 4, attached to wires coated with red insulation and a large cylindrical battery. After closing the briefcase, he stated his demands: $200,000 in negotiable American currency, 4 parachutes, 2 primary and 2 reserve, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the aircraft upon arrival.
Let me read that script for a second. What did that say? He said it said negotiable American currency.
Those are the exact words.
I'll take either typically United States currency or some Monopoly bucks. Whichever you got.
Florence Schaffner conveyed Cooper's instructions to the pilots in the cockpit. When she returned, Cooper was wearing dark sunglasses. The pilot, William Scott, contacted Seattle-Tacoma Airport Air Traffic Control, which in turn informed local and federal authorities. The 35 other passengers were given false information that their arrival in Seattle would be delayed because of a minor mechanical difficulty. The aircraft circled Puget Sound for approximately 2 hours to allow Seattle police and the FBI sufficient time to assemble Cooper's parachutes and ransom money and to mobilize emergency personnel. Flight attendant Tina Mucklow recalled that Cooper appeared familiar with the local terrain. At one point, he remarked, quote, "Looks like Tacoma down there," end quote, as the aircraft flew above it. He also correctly mentioned that McChord Air Force Base was only a 20-minute drive from Seattle-Tacoma Airport,
a fact that most civilians would not know, much less comment upon. Schaffner described him as calm, polite, and well-spoken, not at all consistent with the stereotypes popularly associated with air piracy at the time. He wasn't nervous, Mucklow told investigators. He seemed rather nice. He was never cruel or nasty. He was thoughtful and calm all the time. FBI agents assembled the ransom money from several Seattle area banks. 10,000 unmarked $20 bills, most with serial numbers beginning with the letter L, indicating they were issued by the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, and made a microfilm photograph of each of them. Cooper rejected the military-issued parachutes offered by McChord Air Force Base personnel, instead demanding civilian parachutes with manually operated ripcords. At 5:24 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Cooper was informed that his demands had been met, and at 5:39 p.m., the aircraft landed at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. It was more than an hour after sunset, and Cooper instructed Scott to taxi the jet to an isolated, brightly lit section of the apron and close each window shade in the cabin to deter police snipers. Once the delivery was completed, Cooper ordered all passengers, Schaffner, and senior flight attendant Alice Hancock to leave the plane. During refueling, Cooper outlined his flight plan to the cockpit crew, a southeast course toward Mexico City at the minimum airspeed possible without stalling the aircraft, approximately 100 knots, equivalent to 115 miles per hour, at a maximum 10,000-foot altitude. He further specified that the landing gear remain deployed in the takeoff landing position, the wing flaps be lowered 15 degrees, and the cabin remain unpressurized. At approximately 7:40 p.m., the Boeing 727 took off with only 5 people on board: Cooper, pilot Scott, flight attendant Mucklow, co-pilot Radizak, and flight engineer Harold E. Anderson. 2 F-106 fighter aircraft were scrambled from McChord Air Force Base and followed behind the airliner, one above it and one below, out of Cooper's view. Overall, there were 5 planes in total trailing the hijacked plane. None of the pilots saw him jump or could pinpoint a location where he could have landed. At approximately 8 p.m., a warning light flashed in the cockpit, indicating that the aft air stair apparatus had been activated. The crew's offer of assistance via the aircraft's intercom system was refused. The crew soon noticed a subjective change of air pressure, indicating that the door was open. At approximately 10:15 p.m., the aircraft's aft air stair was still deployed when Scott and Radizak landed the 727 at Reno Airport. FBI agents, state troopers, sheriff's deputies, and Reno police surrounded the jet, as it had not yet been determined with certainty that Cooper was no longer aboard, but an armed search quickly confirmed his absence. The official physical description of Cooper has remained unchanged and is considered reliable. Flight attendants Schaffner and Mucklow, who spent the most time with Cooper, were interviewed on the same night in separate cities and gave nearly identical descriptions. Around 5 feet 10 inches, 180 pounds, mid-40s, and close-set piercing brown eyes. 3 major pieces of evidence were left on the plane: his black clip-on tie, a mother-of-pearl tie clip, and 8 filter-tipped Raleigh cigarette butts.
If this guy can afford bombs and a plane ticket, then what the hell is he even robbing a plane for? I'm genuinely confused.
It's a confusing
Is
case.
it the thrill? Does he love the thrill? Would you rob a plane if you were an adrenaline junkie, Jake?
In this day and age, no.
No,
In 1971, when airplane security was a lot more lax, probably still no. I am not an adrenaline junkie.
Do you have any idea how easy it was to get away with stuff in the 70s?
Do you know how easy it was to get away with stuff in like the 1920s? As long as you weren't there when the police got there, you had a 99% chance of getting away with it.
Catch me if you can, coppers! And then you're gone. You could just go 3 blocks away into your home and they'd never catch you.
Yeah, that's how it was back then. No trace of Cooper or the equipment he jumped with has ever been found to this day. Nothing. But some of the money has.
On Sunday, February 10th, 1980, 8-year-old Brian Ingram was vacationing with his family on the Columbia River at a beachfront known as Tina Bar, about 9 miles downstream from Vancouver, Washington, and 20 miles southwest of Ariel. He uncovered 3 packets of the ransom cash as he raked the sandy riverbank to build a campfire. The bills were significantly disintegrated, but still bundled in rubber bands. FBI technicians confirmed that the money was indeed a portion of the ransom. 2 packets of $120 bills each and a third packet of 90, all arranged in the same order as when given to Cooper. In 1986, after protracted negotiations, the recovered bills were divided equally between Ingram and Northwest Orient's insurer. The FBI retained 14 examples as evidence. To date, none of the 9,710 remaining bills have turned up anywhere in the world. Their serial numbers remain available online for public search. The Columbia River ransom money and the air stair instruction place card remain the only confirmed physical evidence from the hijacking ever found outside of the aircraft.
Many people over the years have actually written or called up the FBI claiming to have more information, claiming to have some of the money. Some people have called the FBI claiming to be D.B. Cooper.
They're balloonsters. I don't buy that. Period.
And it's almost all of it is just people looking for their 15 minutes of fame.
Bullshit!
Because none of them have actually been D.B. Cooper.
One serious suspect considered was a man named Kenneth Christensen. He had served in the Army and was trained as a paratrooper. After leaving the Army, he joined Northwest Orient in 1954 as a mechanic in the South Pacific and subsequently became a flight attendant and then a purser based in Seattle. Christensen was 45 years old at the time of the hijacking, but he was shorter, thinner, and lighter complected than eyewitness descriptions. Christensen smoked, as did Cooper, and displayed a particular fondness for bourbon, Cooper's preferred beverage. He was also left-handed, as evidence shows that Cooper was as well. Schaffner told a reporter that photos of Christensen fit her memory of the hijacker's appearance more closely than those of other suspects she had been shown, but could not conclusively identify him. Mucklow, who had the most contact with Cooper, has never granted a press interview. Christensen reportedly had purchased a house with cash a few months after the hijacking. While dying of cancer in 1994, he told his brother Lyle, "There is something you should know, but I cannot tell you." Lyle said he never pressed his brother to explain. After Christensen's death, family members discovered gold coins and a valuable stamp collection, along with over $200,000 in bank accounts. They also found a folder of Northwest Orient news clippings, which begin about the time he was hired in the 1950s and stopped just prior to the date of the hijacking. Despite the fact that the hijacking was by far the most momentous news event in the airline's history, Christensen continued to work part-time for the airline for many years after, but apparently never clipped another Northwest news story. Research by internet web sleuths would later uncover proof that Christensen did not pay cash for the house he bought after the hijacking, but instead had a mortgage on the house and took 17 years to pay it off. The same search would also uncover proof that Christensen had sold off almost 24 acres of land for $17,000 per acre in the mid-1990s, thus accounting for the large sum of money in his account at the time of his death. Another suspect is Jack Coughlett. He was a con man, ex-convict, and purported government informant who claimed to have been the chauffeur and confidant of Abraham Lincoln's last undisputed descendant, great-grandson Robert Todd Lincoln Beckwith. In 1972, he began claiming he was Cooper and attempted through an intermediary, a former cellmate named James Brown, to sell his story to a Hollywood production company. Coughlett's account was reviewed by the FBI, which concluded that it differed in significant details from information that had not been made public and was therefore a fabrication. The last suspect, L.D. Cooper, a leather worker and Korean War veteran, was proposed as a suspect in July 2011 by his niece, Marla Cooper. As an 8-year-old, she recalled Cooper and another uncle planning something very mischievous involving the use of expensive walkie-talkies at her grandmother's house in Sisters, Oregon, 150 miles southeast of Portland. The next day, Flight 305 was hijacked, and though the uncles ostensibly were turkey hunting, L.D. Cooper came home wearing a bloody shirt, the result, he said, of an auto accident. Later, she said her parents came to believe that L.D. Cooper was the hijacker. She also recalled that her uncle, who died in 1999, was obsessed with the Canadian comic book hero Dan Cooper, and had one of his comic books thumbtacked to his wall, although he was not a skydiver or a paratrooper.
I've never jumped out of an airplane. I never will jump out of an airplane.
You may not, but I will one of these days, man. I'm telling you, I've always wanted to go skydiving.
Absolutely not for me.
Dude, I'm doing it someday.
Not for me.
I'm dragging you with me.
No, you're not.
I am, though.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Between my personal theory is that he did die jumping from the plane before he hit the ground. Because flying below 10,000 feet, sure, that may be enough time to get that parachute out, but the poor weather conditions, he jumping into the woods, he could have hit a tree, fallen, all this kind of stuff.
Just imagine this guy skydiving.
What seems so ridiculous.
I'm just imagining this guy skydiving, not being able to see, and just thunk, hitting a tree.
What seems odd, though, is the fact it all seemed so premeditated, so calm, so thought out. And he was very calm during the whole skyjacking thing, all the way up till he impulsively jumped out of the airplane. And then it just seems like he was winging it at that point, because he had a plan. They were going to fly to Mexico City, and it was probably his intention to land in Mexico City and go wherever he wanted. Why else would he say, let's go to Mexico City, let's fly there?
I don't think he...
when you're running from the law, you go to Mexico.
Well, he probably just thought about the first place in mind. Like, oh man, I don't know. Let's fuck it. Let's go to Mexico City. Because it makes it seem like it's premeditated, that there's somebody there and he has a plan.
My personal theory is that Cooper did die in the jump due to the poor visibility, heavy cloud cover that night, and Cooper's apparent lack of knowledge about parachuting. He knew about airplanes, he knew about all that kind of stuff, but he was not a parachuter. He was not prepared to jump out of the airplane.
Is it parachuter, or is it just parachutist?
Parachuter.
Shootist? Shooter? The shooter?
Shooter. Parachuter. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. But here's the biggest hole in that theory, and might make you laugh. His body and the parachute have never been found.
Was it the joke? Was that supposed to be funny?
It's supposed to be more of a...
Oh! That's great.
No, but his body and the parachute he jumped with, never been found. Skeletal remains, never been found.
I don't think he died. I think he maybe was like, oh boy, this is not like how it is in the movies. I'm so fucked. And then somehow, he nailed it.
But, yeah, no, this case remains unsolved for the most part, but we've thrown some theories out there. It is the only unsolved case of air piracy in commercial aviation history. Not just United States, of course.
I thought this was like an exclusive to the U.S. kind of deal. Like, I didn't know it was like a worldwide unsolved thing.
According to the internet, which never lies, it's the only unsolved case of air piracy, which sounds so much cooler than skyjacking,
Pretty fucking
in commercial aviation history, which I feel like should cover worldwide commercial aviation history, not just specifically United States.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Crimicide.
Like, subscribe, follow.
Like, comment, subscribe, ring that little bell up there, and we'll see you in the next episode.